Hey, I got a question for you. Are you an active B2B consultant? Are you an experienced professional who is looking to start into the consulting industry? Or are you a student wondering whether or not starting a career in consulting is worth it? If yes to any of those questions, you are a great fit to have a 15 minutes free coaching call with me. And during that call, we will be looking at your career and life goals, as well as your current and past experiences. And we will also be able to figure out whether or not we can together build a roadmap towards building your desired career with your desired lifestyle. So don't hesitate to get in touch with me at consultinglifestyle.fm/coaching. COACHING. Consultinglifestyle.fm/coaching. Now, let's go and listen to the episode. Hello and welcome to the Consulting Lifestyle to Eric Quanstrom. Eric, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Diogene.
Yes, thank you, and I'm really excited to have you on the show. But first, for the audience, can you share your career story, share the highlights of your career story?
Yeah, sure. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Science, and that's Science without an S, CIENCE.com if you wanted to visit our website. I've been in that role for almost 6 years now. It's my fifth CMO role, I suppose, in a row. Primarily concentrating on software companies in the MarTech space or the sales tech space, which has been a very consistent kind of like passion and area of focus for me in my career. I'm endlessly fascinated by the intersections between marketing and sales and how any company wants to grow more and uses the appropriate, marketing and sales techniques and tactics and strategies to do exactly that.
No, that's excellent, and yes, the eternal relationship collaboration between sales and marketing teams is always I would not say a challenge, but something to solve as well in companies. But is there one thing about science, or maybe one thing about what you do, is that you deliver services differently than let's say the typical external marketing agency? Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. A lot of our category is broadly defined on the services side as lead generation. And lead generation is, a pretty wide definitional. That said, when people go to Google, they tend to look for things like lead generation services or top B2B lead gen companies. We're also known as an appointment setting, telemarketing, or even a call center firm. And that's on the services side. One of the big differentiators with Science, and something that we do extraordinarily different than a lot of our relevant competition and even a lot of other marketing agencies, is that we have an entire software arm to our business. And so we equip and enable all of our people. So we have a software as a service and a people as a service component to our business. The software has been homegrown and kind of like produced for the specific intent of using it as part of our lead generation. So I can get deeper into kind of like what any of those software titles on our platform do and why they can facilitate lead generation. But at the end of the day, what we're really helping our client companies do is grow. They come to us seeking the ability to find, convert, or start sales conversations with net new customers in their world, which results in their business growing.
Yes, that's very interesting. And actually, yes, we could go back maybe later about the different, not exactly every software, but the fact that you have that family, that suite of product. That's very interesting in your website as well, for anyone who will go into your website. And you have been CMO in different companies, sorry, but in the same industries. And today, if I can say today, I mean, in the past years, we talk a lot about inbound, the fact that the best way to do your marketing is inbound, because you don't have to you don't have to call, you don't have to reach out too much to people. You can just create content and they will come.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Well, You're you're talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart as a CMO. I've worshipped at the Inbound Church for many a year, and I'm a big believer in creating the opportunities for your brand to be put into essentially a buyer's journey, so that you can be discovered, so that you can essentially open up conversations that have people coming through your front door or onto your website, and ultimately expressing interest in your product or service. The slight fly in that ointment, for most companies, most industries, and the statistics are overwhelming in this regard, suggests that inbound marketing typically converts at a rate of, call it 0.5% up to 3% on a good day. And, varies a little bit by industry, but I've really never seen any website convert visitors at a clip that's much higher than that 3% figure that I just threw out. What that really means, and what's fascinating to me and fascinating to science about solving that problem, is if you inverted it and said to yourself, hey, all the good work that I'm doing, all the investments that I'm making to bring people to my site, what are the 97%? And how can I go after them? How can I concentrate my efforts on not just the people that are raising their hands from that small population, but the people that have now been exposed to my brand and potentially now fit my ideal customer profile? So if I have an idea of who I want to sell to and the types of companies, geographies, size of business, industries that they may come from, other criteria or filter criteria that we might apply to that ICP, you can overlay that against your inbound efforts and really start to think about what I like to call an inbound-led outbound motion. So the ability for us to kind of like go back into that 97%, which oftentimes for businesses that have been successful with inbound, grown their traffic, grown their footprint, gotten their brand out there in their particular niche or industry, this is a really smart strategy, because frankly, what you're doing with an inbound-led outbound approach is you're leveraging investments you've already made. You're capitalizing on the ROI and bringing inbound and what is traditionally separate, outbound, together. And we can talk a little bit about how we do that and some of the functional realities of what it might mean to have an inbound-led outbound motion. But I find that a lot of my CMO brethren, peers, if you will, this is oftentimes a gap, right? Like where marketing is very focused on inbound techniques, they're very focused on content creation or SEO or even advertising or pay-per-click or whatever is going to bring somebody to our website, and that's where it ends. Mm-hmm. And then sales is meant to pick up or starts the story with oftentimes outbound or oftentimes referral or network-based sales, and neither of the two are combined. So if you have that gap area that exists in your organization, I would argue that that's something that you would be wise to start thinking about fixing. Start thinking about the strategies that might work and the tactics for essentially taking that inbound traffic that's not converting and going after that in a very strategic way. And I can give you a bunch of reasons for why that's important too.
Actually, you could elaborate, because maybe now you have made a lot of money for some people listening now. It's the first time that I hear about that actual advice.
Yeah, I think one of the best frameworks for evaluating this is to actually think of it from the buy side. So most smart marketers and even smart sales folks, especially if you have a sales cycle and various stages in that sales cycle, have thought through the buyer's journey, have thought through what it might mean, what steps might need to happen for you to execute or get to a close one sale in your, again, product or service or solution. Once you have that kind of like buyer's journey, one of the things that will become immediately apparent is a lot of people will find you and your company inbound. They'll come to your website, they'll read a few pages, and then they'll do nothing else. They'll go away silently, because that's what the vast majority of the world has been taught to do. It's actually very rare, and I would encourage everyone listening to this podcast to think about your own behavior, right? Like, how many of the last, say, 100 or 1,000 websites that you visited did you actually leave a paper trail or raise your hand to say, hey, vendor X, tell me more about, your product or service? It was only when you were very kind of like far down the sales cycle that you felt comfortable giving up your information and saying, yeah, I'm ready to talk to sales. And numerous analyst firms kind of confirm this, and we have trend line reports that tell us that the sales cycle is starting later and later and later for various vendors. Mm-hmm. Now, take all of what I just said and think about the average company in the average competitive industry. Most inbound deals that company will do are competitive shootouts. They are competition with 1, 3, 5, 10 other vendors where essentially you are in a pack improving capabilities. It's almost like an RFP process, request for proposal process, laid bare, but executed day in and day out, because that's just the way the world works, right? That's the way buyers work. They want to look at their options. They want to evaluate their options. I would argue that the smart company that wants to win and take market share and ultimately be kind of a best-in-class competitor wants to always be the first deal or the first player into every deal. Why? You get to set the pace. You get to set the terms. You get to define and differentiate before any relevant competition. And one of the best ways to do that is to break kind of like that third wall where you got back to the buyer as they were doing their homework, doing their research, synthesizing information about your product, service, or even space by running an inbound-led outbound approach. So if I could discover, and this is one of the key kind of, I think, tactics that is very material in running this motion, the ability to de-anonymize my web traffic, to understand who's visiting me at both the company and potentially even at the contact level. I can take that information. And by the way, Science has a tool, it's called Go Show. And this is one of the things that we support. And it kind of sits as the linchpin for everything that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. The de-anonymization of traffic is that first step to then matching who I've just de-anonymized or which company, and do they fit my ICP? So would it be worth my time, money, and effort to spend more time going after or following up with that person, that individual, that company, to get them started in a sales cycle? Again, potentially being, and more likely being, the first one in, the first company in a competitive shootout, helping the customer as they are making their own buying decisions. And the difference between that and just kind of what I like to call standard list-led outbound, and that's where you literally just get a list of your ICP and kind of work your way A to Z or whatever criteria down the list, which is how the vast majority of the world does it today. The difference between the two is with inbound-led outbound, I already have this kind of leg up. I already have this notion, this knowledge that the person I'm reaching out to or the company I'm reaching out to has already seen, heard, or even slightly familiarized themselves with my brand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's a huge gap difference, I would argue. So when we're thinking about this in a consulting framework, what we're thinking about is a philosophy and a belief system, if you will, of how do you want to run your go-to-market? How do you want to run and prioritize efforts of your team, efforts of your company in outreach?
Mm-hmm. You're asking me the question now?
Well, we have a perspective at Science that I've just shared with you. But I think that more companies can wake up to that same perspective and adopt it and bend it to their own kind of like go-to-market ambitions, their go-to-market investments, and the way that they structure their organization for best effect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I have to be honest, what you said about, just take that list of people and companies that fit criteria XYZ and then just go at them. It's something that I think most companies are doing, and it's even something that I have been doing. So that would have been my answer.
and it's hard, right? Like when you're just doing list-led outbound, I mean, that I would suggest or throw as evidence forward. That was how Science actually ran a lot of its outbound campaign and a lot of its client-based outbound campaigns for the last 6+ years, until we started developing our own software to begin to open up this new territory, to begin to open up an inbound-led outbound motion. List-led isn't dead, and it probably won't be anytime soon, but there's an idea around prioritizing efforts that makes room in the world, in our opinion, for both, right? An inbound-led outbound motion and the list-led outbound motion. And there's a third category too that I could speak to, and that's intent-led outbound, which also is a way of potentially getting buyers familiar with your brand or reaching out to them based on using intent tools that might suggest that they're in market and looking for a product or solution.
Do you have an example of an intent tool?
Yeah, we create our own. So Science Go Intent is an encapsulation of exactly that. And the way that we're gleaning intent, sorry, I'm going to dip into technical realities for just a second, and then I'll kind of come back up to 20,000 foot. What we do, since Science also has its own DSP or ad server, is that we have an ability to watch the bid stream of every ad being placed across 63 real-time bidding networks, millions of web pages. We've developed an NLP or a way to understand what the underlying content for any of those millions of web pages are. We've taken that content and we've developed over 10,000 topics. And so what that effectively means is we can then place our identity graph on top of any of the traffic that are hitting these pages. So for instance, if let's say a topic area that was important to Science was something like lead generation services as a topic, we would isolate down to the pages that talk about lead generation services, and those pages that are serving ads, we can then watch and connect with our identity graph the people that pass against those pages. And so we can have an idea then of folks that might be interested in the topic of lead generation services, and therefore put them on a list and prioritize that list for outreach.
That is excellent. What's the software? So Science started without the software. So was the software created before or after your arrival as a CMO?
After.
So okay, you have been involved and in that process of building the software, or at least giving the requirements for the software. So that's very interesting. One other thing about indeed you have a whole Go suite, suite of products.
Yeah.
But there is also one other thing that I liked on your website is you have an ROI calculator, and that's something that is not common in marketing or services companies, because we tend to be a bit more private about about our prices, but the ROI. So maybe can you elaborate on that? Why is it there, and what does it do?
Yeah, we built it a few years ago, mainly for the specific purpose of helping our buyers make better decisions. So the way that we thought about it at the time, and I don't think it's any less relevant today, is this ability to understand that if I'm going to employ a lead generation services firm, such as Science, I'm going to probably pay them a monthly subscription fee, which is how we operate. You know, we're again that SaaS and PaaS blend, so everything's kind of down to a monthly subscription fee, even though our terms are oftentimes annual. At any rate, I can get that down to a monthly cost to my business, and so then with some little effort, and this is part of the ROI calculator, I can also plug in my numbers so that I can understand, hey, if I have the start, or a lot of companies call their first sales call a discovery call, whatever that first call is, or the appointment that we would kind of set up or start that sales conversation with and offer a handoff between our company and our clients, we could look at how many of those does it take to close any one sale. So we would look at like sales conversion rates from held appointments through to close one deals. We would factor in the time period that it took, so the average sales cycle. Then we would calculate the average deal price or total contract value, whatever that average looks like in the ROI calculator. And once you have essentially those elements, conversion rate, time, and success, if you will, you can backwards look at what am I paying this firm monthly to stand up, and how many opportunities would I need to return X% ROI. So it's a handy way of kind of future forwarding any decision that I might make, such as a partnership decision with a company like us. I pay this per month. I get these results downstream of those efforts, and then I can model it out. Am I getting 1.5x ROI? Am I getting 10x ROI? Like, ultimately, a lot of that depends on my brand, my own sales conversion rates, my own average contract value. So all of those get modeled in numerical fashion, and that's the beauty of an ROI calc.
Oh, that's amazing, and I believe that is something maybe more companies should think about. So we have talked a lot. We have been a bit technical. We have talked a lot about the different product, the vision of inbound, outbound. You as a CMO is, I think you said your fifth or sixth role as a CMO. What is like a day in the life? Because when we talk CMO, maybe some people are looking at Gary Vaynerchuk and think that they are living that sexy life every day. So how is it? How is it going for you?
Yeah, his day in the life might be slightly more externally facing, much like this, right? Like appearing on podcasts or having his face all over the internet in a variety of ways. Mine's a little bit more internally focused in that we spend a lot of time developing campaigns, really concentrating on inbound channels and their development. A good example of that might be, the content that we produce for SEO purposes that we then optimize and backlink to for success in order to place ourselves in, to use the glib and very conversational, put ourselves in harm's way as people are discovering or want to discover, companies like us. I'm a big believer, and I think this goes right to the heart of something I do day in and day out as part of my CMO role. How can I attach myself to my potential buyers' journeys, and where can I position our company for greatest success along that continuum? And so if I do that, I automatically begin thinking about where along the web I might place my company or our brand. I might think about relationships, word of mouth, referrals, social media, a lot of different places where, again, as people are coming to, kind of a reality of how to improve their business or accomplish their goals or otherwise meet their needs, especially as they define them along, and I'm going to use a fancy word for saying this, but along our areas of promise. So I think a lot about what are science's areas of promise and how can I create a Venn diagram overlap with our buyers along those lines.
Okay, good. So I believe that there is constant thinking and constant drive for improvement.
Oh yeah.
And that leads to me to ask you a question of one recommended topic is about leadership and courageous leadership. What does that evoke to you?
Well, I think courageous leadership is oftentimes, I would go ahead.
Courageous leadership.
I was thinking of a correlated word, another C word.
Okay.
That courage to me is also counterintuitive or counter to wisdom. It's being willing to stand out alone and kind of like operate around one's principles, ethics, morals, for saying something, doing something, or otherwise putting yourself out there, when oftentimes you're the only ones who has that ability to kind of like stand in the face of what would otherwise be bad decisions, habit and inertia, kind of like ruling the day. The second half of that phrase, courageous leadership, leaders have to go first. That's what it means to lead. I've never seen a leader like follow their way into a leadership role, right? Like you have to go first. You have to set a direction. You have to set a course. And so courageous is oftentimes a course that means path less followed, road less traveled. And that's what it means to me, or that's what it evokes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a little bit also what science is doing in the industry.
We're trying.
Trying,
Who knows? We may have arrows in our back and stub our toes and fall flat on our face in some regards. But it's probably better to do that than not push the boundaries or the bleeding edge, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. Do you also work, because I am myself an IT consultant, so I'm familiar. I'm not necessarily familiar with marketing per se, but with softwares. What about the partnerships that you have as well with other IT companies?
Yeah, we have a variety of them, including tools that we've leaned on or used as part of doing what we do. Two that are kind of like on our public masthead include SalesLoft, which is the sales engagement platform that we use and is part of our day-to-day. HubSpot, which we've been a longtime partner of. We're a HubSpot shop and use a lot of their tools and even coax or help a lot of customers understand their platform better. So at any rate, I think partnership for us is always just trying to like create more value on behalf of the clients that we serve.
Okay, excellent. And Science, as a company, is based in San Diego. Does it have also other offices?
Oh yeah, all around the world.
All around the world. Okay.
Yeah, interestingly enough, we went, with the onset of the pandemic, we had 8 global offices that were, people in them, 5 days a week. Since that time, we've gone fully remote. And we've seen a lot of benefits from doing so, including a lot of the countries that we operate in. No small heavy lift, because Science is north of 1,000 employees. And, our operations people are constantly focused on employee health, employee wellness, employee, kind of like mindset, motivation, all of those types of things. And it's just different when you're in an office versus not. I think that there's a lot of advantages to being a remote or work from home culture now.
Yeah, for sure. There are advantages, and even more so for IT, for software companies. That's perfect. And maybe one last thing that I would like to ask you, Eric, as we are in the consulting lifestyle. For you, what does a consulting lifestyle mean?
Well, when I think about consulting, I first think about, what's unique to Science and its business specifically is every one of our clients that hires us, we represent to the world as them. So, we are effectively training all of our staff and, orienting our software and every motion that we make on behalf of our clients. So, when we reach out, any outreach that we do, any outbound that we do, regardless of flavor of outbound, we're reaching out as that client brand. So if you really think about it, like just in the onboarding process of getting kind of clients up and running, building out all of our sales playbooks, having everyone in lockstep and understanding of like, here's the strategy, here's the tactics that we're going to use, here's the plays that are in the playbook. That's consulting right there. It's basically applying that kind of like third party or second pair of eyes, whatever metaphor you prefer, to our client companies that have chosen to partner with us and collaborating iteratively, successfully with them to produce results that help them grow.
Yeah, that's excellent. Totally agree, and excellent answer. Now, my very last 100% inbound question: where can people find you?
Sure thing. Me personally, especially if you're on a social network like LinkedIn, there's not that many Quanstroms in the world. For whatever that's worth, you can look me up, and I'm generally super easy to find on LinkedIn, Eric Quanstrom. For Science, also easy to find on LinkedIn, other social networks. Again, that's Science without the S. It's kind of an intentional misspelling. It's 6 characters, CIENCE. We have the .com, and you can find us online at science.com.
Okay, perfect. And I believe you also have but you mentioned it, a podcast. So
we do. So for folks that are really interested in going down that kind of like sales development rabbit hole, learning all there is to know about prospecting and, kind of the A to Z, if you will, of outbound. Again, all flavors of outbound. We cover that on the Enterprise Sales Development Podcast. I happen to be the host of that, and we have a lot of great thought leaders on that podcast. We've been doing it now for, a little over 2.5 years, and it's been, I think, pretty well received.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much, Eric. I think it was a great interview, a great insight into the world of sales and marketing together.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Consulting Lifestyle Podcast. If you have enjoyed the episode, leave a review on iTunes or one of your preferred podcasting platform. And if you want to further our relationship, please join our community. Our community is available at consultinglifestyle.fm/community. Looking forward to keep in touch with you.